with my guest, who I'm going to bring out shortly. My name's Teri Schultz. I've been covering NATO and the European Union for the last more than 15 years, and I'm very pleased to be here. The lineup for the next 3 days is just incredible, and never a more important time to be having these conversations, which I hope are going to be very candid. I am going to start that, definitely here in this chat, with the Deputy Secretary General of NATO, Mircea Geoană. Please come out here, Mr. Deputy Secretary General.
You go there?
We know each other well. He has already said he wants to have rapid-fire questions, so everyone, he's going to shake a few hands here, and we'll get more on this shaking the hands thing in a minute. But you are all going to be able to ask your last questions. Come on up here, Mr. Diaz.
I come here? Okay.
Yep, up here.
Let's go.
You're going to be able to ask questions via Slido. I think people are probably getting warmed up with this technique. And it is your last chance to ask him questions as DSG, because his mandate is ending and he will be moving on to a new role, which everyone anticipates is going to be a candidate for his president of his home country in Romania. I have permission to say that.
That's top secret.
That's top secret. I'm used to breaking news at NATO. So he's open to questions on his years at NATO, on what his hopes are for his country, for his neighborhood, for the Black Sea. I'm sure you want to speak about that. But I am going to give him a bit of a softball to start us off. The theme of our session here is rising threats, timeless resolve. Now, to me, that's a bit of a yawn. Timeless resolve, that doesn't sound that active, Mr. DSG. But look, when you took over in 2019, when you became the deputy in 2019, we never could have imagined the threats that are facing NATO's neighborhood, your own country's neighborhood. We would not have imagined the situation that we're in today. Yes, the resolve is unbroken, but are you concerned that that balance, that the tipping point of the threats against the resolve, 32 allies now, not all of them as resolute as others, do you think that balance is more at risk now than it would have been, say, in 2019 when you took this job?
No, thank you so much, Teri. Thank you for being here, and great to be back in Prague. Listen, anybody who pretends that he or she, they do know the future, this is not totally true. So when I took this job 5 years ago, when Secretary General Stoltenberg, he's now 10 years in his job, so he could have even more, let's say, educated answers than mine. Of course, we didn't anticipate what would happen after only 5 years. Historically, moments of global shift, of balance of power, are always conducive to instability and eventual tension and even war. That's something that history teaches all of us. And here in Europe, we have a lot of history we can, rely upon. There was a question about the role of NATO itself. There are doubts about
if there even should be one.
Then we had Afghanistan, which was a very traumatic experience for us. Then we had the pandemic, when the global shift and attention moved to something else than traditional security. But we knew in the depth of our hearts, and being the keepers of the tradition of this great alliance, that we have inside NATO the genes of permanent adaptation to a changing world. When I was hired by Jens, and I'm the first guy from the newcomers in NATO to take this job, this is during the Trump time. I remember the first summit in London with Boris Johnson and President Trump.
It wasn't a summit. You couldn't call it a summit. It was a leaders' meeting.
It was a leaders' meeting, okay. Yeah. So we've seen lots of politics moving around. But I think very indicative, when I took the job, Jens Stoltenberg, who's a superb leader, he called me in his office, like a good, Norwegian and Nordic, by the way, happy if we have Finland and Sweden in. He gave me a written instruction, this EU, this. And he comes to me and says, Mircea, you're a political guy. I want you to be, on my behalf, the champion of innovation in NATO. So in a way, anticipating that beyond the geopolitics and the congregation of autocratic powers like Russia and China, Iran and North Korea, the real competition was about who can have the technological edge. And if I would say something that I would say that happened in NATO over these 5 years, number one, we had probably the sharpest, quickest, more profound transformation of any large organization, I think, in history, adapting from that world to this new world in a few years' time. One. Second, not only the geopolitics are shifting, but also the economic model and the technological revolutions are changing also our economies, the way we work, the way we live, professions, but also the art of warfare. When I look, and we have now AI strategy in NATO, we have a biotech strategy in NATO, we are working on a quantum strategy in NATO, we have a space strategy in NATO, we are having climate change and security in NATO. So what I want to say that what's really spectacular in NATO is that we really embrace this change with a very broad definition of security itself. Of course, military security, new defense plans, 500,000 troops under high readiness, Finland and Sweden joining our alliance, high-tempo exercises, multi-domain, everything, which was normal in a way for us to adapt to the military new situation. But what's remarkable of NATO is politically, and in terms of the breadth and the depth of the new definition of security, we are just, I would say, really amazingly swift. Not perfect, we still have things to do, but to work at the same time with supply chain, with energy security, with cyber security, with biotech, AI, and quantum, and new materials which are coming, with space. And this is something I believe shows again and again, as Madeleine Albright was saying about her adoptive country, and here in Prague, Madeleine Albright is the Madeleine, and I was the privilege to be a foreign minister together with her and be part of the Aspen Institute experience with her. She said that about America to be the indispensable nation. I would say today, for 1 billion people from 32 countries, that NATO is the indispensable organization and alliance. That's who we are. That's what we'll do. And I know the guys coming after me, and after Jens, of course, Marute taking over the next few weeks, will be doing the same. The world is so complicated that we need a stronger NATO more than ever.
Okay, I think that's a very good overview. You did have time to work on innovation. I mean, some of the things like Diana, like the financing of...
The Innovation Fund.
I mean, the Innovation Fund is something that once it was created, everyone, it was easy to think, wow, why didn't we think of this before? It's so natural, it's so normal, it's so smart. And I don't say those things easily, to be overly flattering, but to draw in these technologies at very early stages into NATO's sphere is something that I think is priceless. Given the competition, given the threats that we're talking about, it's even more important. Can you explain a little bit about that?
There's something quite interesting. Let's go back to economic history this time, not only political history. In the 60s, 90% of all technology used in NATO of the defense and national security sectors were produced by government. Department of Energy labs, NASA, DARPA, the Pentagon, and that was an economic model for innovation in the 60s. Today, in 2024, even before 2024, 90% of everything we use in defense and national security is produced by private sector, by large tech companies, by large defense, by startups, by young entrepreneurs. So this huge shift from one model to the other also came with a price. Many of the young, talented people working in Silicon Valley or in London or in Bucharest or in Warsaw or in Prague had a certain misperception about NATO. There was a difficulty for the tech sector to work, number one, with government, and even less so with NATO. So when this war started also, when China is on the rise, and there's so much danger from everywhere, I see a shift in the pendulum, and I think now, and the role of NATO is to engage with industry, not only traditional defense sector, but tech, startups, Diana, the Innovation Fund, and to basically say, we are in this together. Because there's no peace, there's no security, there's no business. There is no school, there is no family, there's no nothing. So what we are now, basically, what I think we did spectacularly well, far from being perfect, in NATO, that we are becoming a sort of a natural organic interlocutor for private sector. people come and knock on our door.
You've had to become more agile, though.
You also become a little bit more, to be honest, a little bit less rigid, a little bit more flexible, a little bit more understanding a little bit more the mindset of entrepreneurs and tech and industry and business. And I would say that this is probably one of the key roles of NATO, which is more discreet, is not that visible, is not in the headlines, that in fact, we are helping the democratic West, free societies, liberal capitalism in all our countries to find this new equilibrium between industry, technology, government, and society. And this new balance, this new equilibrium, will be decisive for our overall capacity to prevail in this very tough competition against countries that are really, really, against our interest and against our values. So I would say that technology is not only a means, is also, innovation is a mindset. And I think in NATO we have managed to achieve, not easily, a culture of innovation. And I'm very proud of my young colleagues, because it's not, we are the political guys. We always brag about what others do. And we do brag, and we should brag. But I have to say that we have in NATO, from all across our nations in NATO, from all our military guys, our intel guys, our civilian, international people, we have superb people. And I'm also running on behalf of our Secretary General also the human resources part. And for one young professional, young guys here, okay, just call me after this thing. We had for one superb program for young professionals, we had 1,400 applicants for one place to work for us. So also I think our reputation as a sterling organization, agile, smart, professional, in the service of our nations is also something that I think we improved a little bit.
Okay, we're already down to less than 5 minutes to go. That was very quick. But given what you were just discussing about more inclusiveness, changes in attitude, we have a question from the audience. What can be done to further strengthen the role of women in security? An ever-present question since the beginning of the alliance, one that perhaps hasn't had as much progress as many of us would have liked to see on this.
I mentioned that we are also changing rapidly in NATO, and I mentioned climate change and security. It was not on our radars before. It is now heavily on our radars. Secretary General has appointed a special representative for women, peace and security, and we have a colleague that she's doing great. But I'm seeing still, with results that can be improved and should be improved, a change of our culture when it comes to women, peace and security. And also Marie-Doa Besancenot here, our superb colleague running public diplomacy and everything else in NATO, is also a proof of the fact that it's not only about gender parity per se, which is important, is the fact, especially in our militaries, which is a more difficult profession in a way in terms of the traditional way of doing things, things are improving. And I have to say that for us, gender balance, when we help Ukraine, few people know that when we discuss about how much to give air and defense, establishing a lessons learned center in Poland, which is a great achievement after the NATO summit, that we work specifically with the many Ukrainian women in uniform, heroes as much as the other colleagues, for specific needs in the military.
Uniforms are a big thing that people are not aware of. There are not women
of course, are more specific to our colleagues. So I would say that for us, that's a big, big shift, and I'm convinced that Mark Rutte and my successors will be continuing this leadership in making sure that our colleagues will be fully embraced in this organization.
And it's especially important when there's so much problem recruiting, right? People are having trouble filling their ranks in the militaries with the new needs of the new regional plans and the rising threats. You have to appeal to women, and you have to keep them. And right now, that's not happening.
I'm also looking to the fact that there are more and more women embracing not only the military profession, but also technology. I'm seeing with positive eyes. In my alma mater, originally I was to the Polytechnic University of Bucharest. That's my first school. Then I went to many others. And today, in my home country of Romania, we see parity almost at the entry level in technical schools. And there's a super school, by the way. And we see basically almost parity between young women and young men, teenagers that are coming into enrollment into university. So our interest is for the military per se, but also for the adjacent professions, technology, STEM, because they bring so much talent and they bring so much sophistication and diversity. So it's not only a matter of numbers, it's a matter of quality. For us, bringing women at the forefront of what we do is not only a matter of a mere gender balance, it's about added value. They add a lot to us. And we are very, very grateful to all the ones who are coming towards us.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up, but because I didn't get a question about this, I'm going to take the opportunity to ask, what makes you decide to go back and run a campaign for president?
No, that's...
I mean, honestly, you've just had to find consensus among 31, 32 countries now, and you still have the energy after these years to go back and run a national campaign.
This is about...
No, you don't.
I'm in NATO, and for the remaining days of my office, I will stay there. But I will say one thing. I'm one of the people, very young, that we started the journey of bringing former communist countries back where we belong, in the West. I was the youngest ambassador of Romania ever in Washington at 37 of age. I was running on the hallways of Congress and US Senate to get my country into NATO like crazy. And we failed the first time. In Madrid, we were not invited. You know, the Czech Republic and Hungary and Poland were the first. And then we persevered. I became foreign minister. I raised the flag physically of my country as a new member of NATO in the old headquarters in Brussels. I closed with my own hand the accession negotiations to the EU for my country. And to be honest, to answer your question, Teri, I believe that once bringing in Prague in 2002, the summit invited my country and 6 others, the Baltics and the others, in one bite. And President G.W. Bush played a huge role in that, and we will always be grateful to him for that. And I really believe that after that, in a way, my role as a leader of my country, as a patriot in my country, as a freedom lover in former communist Europe, that my job would have been completed, because once in NATO and the EU, normally everything is perfect. It is not. Now we are entering a period of history that will be more convoluted, more dangerous, and also filled with opportunities like we never had before since the fall of communism. That's a new historical cycle. And all of us, and I'm talking especially to the countries from my region, to Poland, to the Baltic countries, to all the others. We have a sacred obligation, my friends, to bring our countries to the real level, to really become not only strategically relevant allies or EU member states, but to really become heavyweights. Because the heavier we become, and the more successful we become, and the stronger we become, the stronger this alliance would be, and the West will perdure. And also last word about Ukraine, about Moldova.
But wait a minute, what's your plan for that? What's your plan for making you heavyweights? Europe has known this for years and still fails to stick together.
We have to invest more in the skills of our people. We have to connect, speaking of Romania, 360 degrees. Romania will be an indispensable country for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Romania will be an indispensable country for the success of Moldova as becoming an EU country. Romania will be probably the only country that keeps Georgia across the Black Sea connected to us. Romania is a country that in a Central European Visegrad context will need to play a bigger role to resynchronize this part of Europe. We are the biggest country in the Western Balkans. We are a country that is also connected to the Middle East. When the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor will come to fruition, because we need to do that, where would it come from? Also through my country. So basically bringing our economic and our military might. And also I have to say that the Czech Republic is doing great. Poland is doing exceptionally well. So I think, I thought that I should really go and make some money into the private sector, continue to build my beloved Aspen Institute Romania, which I founded. I see colleagues here. But sometimes there is a need for us, the people that have experience and know a little bit the game, to say this is the time for us to reinvest ourselves for the next chapter of the Romanian National Project and for the next chapter of our great alliance. And I will be with this group and friends ever and ever because that's our family, that's where we belong to, and we need to be stronger together like never before. And I'm so hopeful and optimistic that we'll prevail in this very complex world.
I do want to let you get back to that last thought about bringing Ukraine in. You were about to talk about that.
I'm coming from a country that was believed to never be able to join the West. Nobody gave Romania a dime of a chance to join NATO and then the EU. It was an improbable proposition. But we believed in that, and we managed to do it. And I think Ukraine belongs to this family. Ukraine is making and bleeding also for us. And I think we have a strategic interest, but also a moral obligation. And if we are true to our democracies, values and ethics matter. We have to really make sure that Ukraine is becoming part of this family, not because we want them, but because they want to join. And for me as a Romanian, knowing how difficult it was for my country to go back to its natural, cradle of civilization, I have an obligation to make sure that they will also be doing this. Let's first help them prevail and be strong in this very difficult war. And I know that Ukraine will be part of the family as a sovereign nation in Europe. It's all good for business, to be honest, also for our region, because it's a big country coming. So, but listen, because that's probably my last appearance, not only in GLOBSEC, but an international conference after 5 years. In the next few days, I will say how grateful I am to all our partners in the media, in the think tank community, especially the young ones. I want to thank you so much for rediscovering, in a way, NATO, for believing into an organization that is the foundation of everything we do. And I leave after 5 years with pride, with a sense of mission accomplished, with a sense of have learned a lot, to have given a lot to my organization, and to be a little bit naughty. I think Jens Stoltenberg had a good pick in choosing me 5 years ago.
And if your luck continues, you will be back in Brussels at summits and seeing plenty of these people.
I'll be coming back to see NATO from a different chair.
Well, a confident man anyway. Thank you very much. It's always been a pleasure to work with you,
Thanks,
Mr.
Teri.
DSG, and I'm sure everyone would share my welcome. All right, everyone, there are refreshments out the door, and we will continue on the stage with the session, A Just Peace for Ukraine. You don't want to miss that at 2:35. Thank you very much.